What is up, everybody, and welcome back to yet another bus build video, where today we're going to start building the battery box and all those electronics that go in there. Let's take a look. First things first, today I want to paint these boards white so that when I start mounting electronics to them, I'm not just going to leave gaps in what I get painted or not. So that's going to clean up this area really nicely, and then we can start mounting my solar charge controller and a couple other bits and pieces so that I can put my batteries and have them start being charged by the sun as we're working. Okay, my walls are painted, they are dry, and I was compiling the pieces that I want to put in, and I realized that I'm missing one part. It is a 16 amp breaker with a positive and negative side so that I can have a breaker between my solar panels and my solar charge controller. So it's unfortunate that I don't have that. I just ordered one. It'll be here this week, but that just means that I can't get my batteries charging off of solar today. So what we can still do is look at all the parts and pieces that need to go here and start laying them out in the most efficient way, because the closer things are together, the less wire you use. Wire is very expensive, so the less wire I can use and the tighter I can make things, the more space efficient and also the more cost efficient I'll be. So we'll start looking at some of the pieces, like my charge controller. Where's that gonna go? How close to the batteries can that be? And we'll start building my battery. These 12 boxes here each have a 3-volt 100 amp hour cell, and I will be putting them all together in a combination of series and parallel to make up a 12-volt 300 amp hour battery. I picked up some threaded rod and lock nuts from the store because the cool thing about these cells is they come with enough housing that you can use that threaded rod to tie a whole string of them together. So I have 4 sections of threaded rod per set of cells, and it holds them all together in groups of 6, essentially creating physically one solid block of battery. So I have 2 separate blocks, each of them are 6 cells, and I'll show you how I'm going to hook them all up together to get them to be one giant battery. So here you can see the 2 blocks. The threaded rod runs through the top corner here and top corner there, and the bottom corners as well. So this whole thing is one giant chunk. Great. Now I'm gonna with them together like this next to each other. This is going to be my main positive. This is going to be my main negative. So I'm going to connect all 3 of these together and all 3 of these together, creating one group of 3. Then over the top of this, I'll connect this group of 3 to this group of 3, which will also be connected through here. Alright, boop, done. And then here, these negatives to these positives, I'll connect this group of 3 to this group of 3, where these will be connected, you know, instead of 3, and then same back over this way. Okay, we've got all our bus bars on, we've got all our lug nuts on and tightened, and let's test and see. Effectively, this should have taken all those 3-volt cells and made a 12-volt battery. So I'm going to take my leads and we're going to test and see what voltage we come up with. Plus, minus. Hey! The battery is built. I've completed what I wanted to do with it so far. last I left off, I showed that we tested it and it was 13.2 volts, 13 point some volts, which means that I've assembled it all in proper combination of parallel and series. I built a little frame that will hold it but still allow me to move it, and it's still like one full unit. I added a 300 amp terminal fuse on the positive side, and I custom drilled a copper bar that fits on the negative side, which gives me an attachment point for my my BMS. Right? So my BMS is attached, it is bolted onto the negative end, and all the little lead wires that go to the top of each side of each cell are attached and in there as well. I've actually been able to connect my phone to the Bluetooth module that comes with the BMS, and I can see the voltage of each cell as well as the total state of charge for the whole battery. It's pretty cool. It is the day after building my battery, and the goal for today is to be able to charge it. Now, since again I don't have the breaker for my solar panel, I will be trying to hook up my inverter charger so that I can plug it into the grid and charge off of an extension cord. I can see via the Bluetooth connection to my battery that I'm down to 27% capacity, which, I mean, these batteries haven't charged since before they were shipped from the manufacturer, so it's been weeks. So hopefully I can get some stuff charging and see how that goes by the end of the day. I'm starting to build the one side of my main positive bus bar. So one end will connect to the side of this switch just like this, and I need one hole out here so that I can have an in from my solar panel and an out from my and a positive from my battery. That way, independent of whether this is on or off, my batteries will charge via solar. I'll connect another piece of bar to the other side of this that will have all my other positive lines, so that with the flip of a switch I can turn off my inverter, my DC system, and whatever else I have connected over there. So, gotta drill one more hole here and then cut it off, and then we'll have half this positive bus bar done. Here is my positive bus bar. You can see that this is going to be the fuse coming in from my solar to this side, and this is going to be going to my battery positive. This will connect right there, and then this will allow me to turn on or off. It's hard when it's not mounted, but if I turn this on, then that delivers power to all this, and this will be my inverter charger, my DC to DC charger, as well as my DC master fuse panel coming off of here. So that's what these three are going to control. And yeah, so let's see if we can get a fat piece of 2-aught wire going from here to our battery, and then we'll start to see if we can mount this in a position that makes sense, like maybe here, and then I'll put my solar charge controller over there. Yeah, I'll look at some options, but that's part one. Here is my negative bus bar. I'm using some extra ANL fuse holders that I had. So essentially these bolts are going to be not used. If I feel the need to, I can add, I guess, another piece of bus bar in between those bolts later, but right now I think this is plenty. I'm going to screw this to the wall down there in between these two. Not connected yet, but there's a positive line going up to the positive bus bar. The solar side nothing's done there yet. There's my switch. Here's the rest of the positive bus bar going down through a 250 amp ANL fuse holder, coming down to the positive side of my inverter charger, and then I have a negative coming out there to my negative bus bar, which is connected to the batteries. So we're missing this connection, and then power on, and power will be delivered. However, I do want to hook up my alternating current in and out right here before I close this up and power things on. Okay, this is the moment of real truth. Before I close up the inverter charger, I want to power everything on and see if everything's wired correctly and working right. Cross my fingers, I've done my research and executed appropriately. So Here we go, we're gonna try it out. Currently this is off, so we're gonna turn this on first. And then we're gonna turn this on. Okay, it started up. Plug an extension cord into this and see. Okay, now it says input 119 volts. Hey! That means we're charging. What a relief. Let's check the app and see what the app says about what's going on in the batteries now. It says we're charging. Now let me give you a quick rundown of where we're at. Last time I shared progress with you, I had hooked up the inverter charger to the barn so that I could charge my batteries from the grid. Fantastic. Since then, I've added a couple more accessories. I came in on and off, little here, little there. Again, difficult to film when I'm in and out and not consistently just cranking on it for a while. But I added my DC to DC charger so that when I turn on my engine and run the alternator, it will charge the batteries. And I also added my solar charge controller because my breaker got here. So that is all put together. Right now I'm charging off of solar, which is great. It's still early in the morning, so the sun is at a super sharp angle to my panel, so it's not putting a ton of amperage into my batteries at the moment, but it is charging nonetheless. So what that looks like is over here, these are my solar wires coming in, and this is my 16 amp breaker. That way I can flip this switch and turn it off so that I'm not receiving anything from solar. They go into my solar charge controller, which is here, and then it goes out into my batteries, positive through a 60 amp fuse, through, and then down here to the negative bus bar. Connects to here, and there charges the battery. Now, this is the DC to DC charger. This is connected to my negative bus bar. I am still missing my positive lead that comes from the alternator. Now the reason I haven't done that yet is because I need to drill a hole through the floor, and in order to drill a hole through the floor, I want to have my finished flooring in. Hold that thought for a moment. This side, positive comes out to my positive bus bar through a fuse again, and this side comes to the negative as well. The reason that this negative can also connect to this same spot is because, also drilling a hole through the floor, I need to connect this bus bar to the chassis of the bus. That way everything that's grounded is going to be grounded and connected to the negative of this end. Now that will essentially then create a closed loop from my alternator in to out here, out to the chassis of the bus, connecting it back to the batteries in the front. So that way I only have to run one big wire to get to here. So my comment about the floor, that is my next step. I'm going to slide the battery and the inverter charger out of the way so that I can put a couple pieces of my finished flooring underneath those, and then I can drill some holes through that, through my subfloor, through the insulation, and through the metal underneath, so I can put some chunky wires running through the floor. And then this setup is going to be pretty much done as far as the bulk of it goes. I still have to do my distribution box, but that'll come later. So that's the task for this morning, is to slide these out of the way, put a couple pieces of floor in, drill some big holes in there, and get my last couple chunky bits of wire connected to this area. Now that I got this beautiful floor in place, time to drill a hole right through it. The idea is that we're going to pass this big cable through the floor and bolt it to the chassis of the bus so that we're grounded here on this negative bus bar. So we're going to go right here. Bah! Drill a hole. right through all the way. I've measured from here and on the bottom, and there's nothing that I'm going to run into, no obstructions or weird bars or cords or whatever. So I'm clean to go, and let's see if this is really tricky or if it's just going to, you know, kind of blaze right through. Well, that was easy. Okay, we're going from the bottom up. I already filed the metal edge in here so that there's no catches or burrs that are going to cut the insulation on the wire. And since I only need about 3 inches on the inside, I'm just going to push 3 inches up and leave the rest down here for finishing once I've got everything attached. I ground down a little piece on the main frame and I drilled a hole so that now once I get my lug ready, I can just bolt it right to the frame, and then we'll be grounded. Perfect. Now that the main negative ground to the chassis of the bus is wired, I'm going to do the positive that comes from the alternator so that my DC to DC charger is going to be all ship shape, and then we're going to put everything back together. As I mentioned in the last video update that I put out a couple days ago, talking about building the bathroom framing and whatnot, we were evacuated from Angwin yet again. This time the fire is much closer, and it has gotten closer in the last couple of days. So I've relocated up to Central Oregon, but I want to show you what happened since I last recorded the footage you just saw when I was at home. I finished up the whole battery setup. All of my charging methods work, and they work splendidly. Nothing overheats, nothing over discharges and whatnot. I even went so far as to build a box around the battery so that while I'm driving, I can have stuff in the bus and not worry about it smashing into all that equipment. So I have my battery box built. There's ventilation holes. There's a removable panel so I can get in there and fix stuff if I need to. And there's also a big distribution panel that has both breakers for my AC system as well as fuses for my DC system. And there are a few appliances that I was able to actually wire and get working. One being my vent fan up in my ceiling, which is great. That way I can actually pull air in or push air out when I'm in here and get some cool air flowing. And the other is 2 lights, both controlled by a dimmer switch up in the front. One of those lights is just a strip of LED that's hanging in here so that if it's dark, I can turn something on besides my phone flashlight. It's been super helpful. And the other lights are the ones that I mounted months ago on the outside, and those are wired, and you know, all of that runs off of my in-house batteries now, which is amazing. Accessory that I did wire as well is the USB outlets that are in the wall over here underneath the dinette. So all of those 3 bits are wired and functioning off of my DC fuse block. And then on my AC system, I was able to get 2 outlets working, 2 outlet locations, which means 4 AC 110 volt plugs. And those all work off of my inverter, off of my batteries. It's fantastic. It feels amazing to have this system working exactly how I designed it. With that being said, and established that I'm here in Central Oregon, I'm only here for another night before I head up to Washington for a night and then over to Idaho. So in the next week or 2 weeks, I will be working on a bunch of metal work with my uncle in Idaho, and that's gonna be very exciting. Hopefully I can get some footage of that and edit it on my laptop so you guys can keep seeing what's happening. If you want immediate updates as far as what's going on, again, like I said last video, Instagram is the way to keep track of things as soon as they come out. And then I'll put these videos out once I have a chance to work on it. But that is what's going on with the bus. That is it for this video. Thank you so very much for making it all the way through the video and getting to this point. I know this video was loaded with probably somewhat confusing content for many of you, but hopefully I explained it in a way that at least a little bit makes sense. Those of you that I know you know what I'm talking about. I'm glad you got to watch it. I'm glad you got to follow along and see what I did with my system. Again, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for the support and for following along with the build. And with that, that is it for this video. Hit that like button below if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the coming weeks of development. And we'll see you in the next one.